Hi guys, welcome back. It's Peter du Toit and my young pal, Rob Moore. And today, um, please guys, don't forget to like, subscribe and comment. Your comments are vital to us. It guides us as to what you want to hear and see. So please don't forget, like, subscribe and comment. And as we always say, this is saying it like it is. So don't expect Rob and I to come tread softly. It's going to be right in. And today we're going to talk about subjects that you've mentioned to me on my Twitter account and on the comments. And let's start with something that's on most people's lips right now. Khama Billiat, top player in South African standards, and in Soccer Laduma recently, in my friend Vianney editor's column, headline was nobody wants Billiat. And a lot of guys were upset with that. But the reality is he doesn't have a club, and we're probably about over a quarter way in the season. And Rob, he was at your club, Ajax Cape Town. I know you discussed taking him over or helping him as a player get overseas. First of all, if you look at his record, at Ajax, 24 goals in 83 games as a winger. That's a goal every 3.5 games. That's a pretty good record. And I watched him a lot at that year. I wasn't sure of him when he first got there, but he was clearly quality in South African terms towards the end of his career at Ajax. And that got him a big move to Mamelodi Sundowns. 41 goals in 101 games. That's a goal every 2.3 games. Again, he played more as a wide man or as a 10, but it's still a very good record. He was on fire. They couldn't agree to a contract and eventually went to Chiefs, 26 goals in 84 games, one in three. Not as good because 1 in 3.3, but not as good because he played mainly as a striker. A lot of injury problems, and people also, a lot of rumors about lifestyle problems as well. But first of all, talk us about when you spoke to him about taking him overseas, because I felt he could have made it.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, he was an interesting player at IS Cape Town. I remember meeting with him and the late Edzai Kazanayo, who actually was a player of mine when I owned one of the owners of IS Cape Town. And Edzai later became
Lovely player, winger, left winger.
Yeah. And he actually later became an agent, Edzai. And I wanted I was interested to work with him on trying to get Billiat abroad. But it just, I just came away from the lunch and subsequent attempts to try work on that, with thinking to myself, I think that they think they've got all the answers, so better to leave it. Just not waste time, not waste his time, not waste my time, move on,
But what made you think that he could make it overseas? And where would you have taken him?
He had a nice unpredictability about him.
Yeah.
He was quick. His finishing wasn't in the knowledge Masona school of being clinical. Okay, I don't think he was as clinical as knowledge was, and sometimes his decision making was a little bit wrong on the final action. So we would pass instead of shooting, shoot instead of pass. But there was enough there to work with at the right level of club to start off with. Okay, a lot of South African players and clubs delude themselves about where they will go to Europe and they'll start and plug in at this level. It's very often they overrate their qualities. Okay, and that's why a lot of you look at a lot of transfers. I mean, just to give you an example. When I was looking after Kermit Erasmus when he was at Pirates and he had 6 months to go before the end of his contract, I'm talking about the first time, I was shopping Kermit around the top clubs of Sweden and Scandinavia, because I saw Kermit as having certain qualities, but he wasn't a prolific striker. His numbers weren't clinical. He was, it wasn't as if he was 6'1" or 1.85 m, and he was a speed merchant or a target man or something. There were certain physical challenges there that he needed to be in the right environment at the right level. So that's where I was shopping him around. Next thing, boom, he ends up going to France, which I had nothing to do with. He ends up going to Rennes on a deal done basically behind my back, but that's is what it is. And I looked at this and I thought, but Rennes is a top 4 side in France. How is this possible that Kermit Erasmus is going to Rennes? So he went there, and of course, you normally have the normal fanfare, the exact same fanfare that accompanied Lyle Foster going to Monaco. And it wasn't the right move for Lyle, And so Peter, what I'm trying to say is, when you allow an ego to try force a move in a certain direction that is not a move that's starting at the appropriate next step, then the chances of failure are obviously higher. You know what I mean? And I think that Billiat in the right company, going into the right environment, could have taken the next step. But for whatever reason, Edzai had a different plan. Billiat maybe had another plan, and he ended up at Sundowns. Okay, no problem. So then you ask yourself, well, when he was so successful at Sundowns, why did he leave Sundowns to go to Chiefs? I mean, how much more money could they really have been paying him? I wouldn't have imagined if you're a successful player at Sundowns, there's not a club in the country that live with you financially,
Yeah, I thought maybe Chiefs offered more. Who knows? But just going back to the Foster and the
maybe Peter, maybe Sundowns didn't offer what they could have because maybe they had some question marks.
Yeah, actually, that's probably not casting aspersions, but that probably is more likely because I can't see Pizza Masimani letting a top player go to a rival, nor could I see Sundowns letting a top player go to a rival and that type of top player, guy was scoring so many goals and so on and so forth. So, look, there have been rumors about his lifestyle, so maybe that was the situation.
Yeah. And look, to be fair, his Chiefs stint obviously didn't work out exactly like all the parties wanted it to. Yeah. And but whether he's sitting now without a club is, who knows how accurate that is, because maybe there are clubs that want to take him, but only at a certain amount of money. And maybe he's thinking he's worth more than that. But at 33 years old, and you're sitting doing nothing for 12 months, your stock is just going down and down. So at some stage, you've got to make a call. I've got to get back on the field because I'm running out of time, Yeah.
Plus, we don't know the state of his injury or his recovery of his injury because he hasn't been on a pitch. Just going back to the Foster and the Erasmus, you can't blame the clubs because they're looking after themselves. They've obviously got big money from Monaco. They're a massive club, and the French club, you say Rennes, also must have paid fair money for it. So I don't blame the club. It's a difficult one because obviously I'm sure they offered good wages to those players, and I'm sure the agent, got good money as well. So it is difficult to understand from all parties. How do you go, listen, don't take this big deal and tell the club to take less. Let's go to a club that's going to suit your career in the long run. It's a complicated scenario.
No, it's a complicated scenario, Peter, but at the end of the day, you also as a club want to have a track record of successful sales. Because if you are known to be a good exporter, clubs from Europe will come and look at your players and say, but they've got a good track record. Look at that guy who went from there to there and where he is now. So sometimes you've got to look at it and play the medium to long-term game. And say, because look at Lyle. Lyle went to Monaco, didn't make it. No shame on that because Monaco has very, very good young players.
Mbeku was playing up front at the time.
Exactly. And so very good young players. Then he went to Guimarães, I think, on loan and played second team there. Couldn't make the first team. Again, Guimarães is not a monkey level. It's a good level. And, and then he then went to Westerlo, who was in the second division of Belgium. did well, team went up, came into the top league of Belgium, did well there, got the move to Burnley. You understand? So, so there was a process there that has worked better in the last few years for Lyle than how the beginning of the journey was. And in the case of Erasmus, well, I was right. He didn't make it at Rennes. I think he went on loan to another French club where he didn't make it. Then he ended up, I think, in Sweden. Sweden, in maybe a second division club in Sweden or something. And then he ended up coming back to South Africa. Now, the question is, had he gone from Pirates to just a smaller club in his re-entry into Europe? Because remember, he was in Europe and it didn't work out for him in the beginning. So his re-entry, if he had just taken maybe a different road and a less glamorous road, who knows? Maybe the outcome could have been different, but maybe not.
Yeah, look, as I say, hindsight is an exact art. You know,
exactly.
Again, a lot of the readers and viewers have pointed this out to us and would like your opinion on this. Themba Zwane, probably, arguably the best player in South Africa and arguably Bafana's best player. And he's been outstanding as a Sundowns player, there's no doubt. If you look at his record from 2011, besides a loan spell at Aces, he's played nearly 230 games, 54 goals. That's a goal every 4 and a bit games, if my math is correct. He's a late bloomer because he's already 34. But without a doubt, proper ability on the ball, goes past people with ease. He can't score goals. He's always struggled in front of goal. His final pass at times, and this is not just my opinion, Pizzo Simani pointed us out many times, his final decision making is not as good as it could be, but in particular his goal scoring. But a lot of guys saying, you know, what's your opinion? Would you have taken him overseas at some stage? Could he have made it? Where would he have made it? Besides his lack of goal scoring, because he's not a midfielder per se, he's very much an attacking forward stroke midfielder. You know, today's positions, those kind of midfielders are not doing the job of tracking back, and well, they track back, but they're not defensive midfielders in any way and form. They're more attacking players in the modern game.
Peter, in my experience of being in this game, timing is everything at the end of the day. You know, a player who's still 24, 23, 24, and he's playing in the PSL, it then becomes very difficult to move them abroad. You know, there's a sort of a cutoff point, because it doesn't matter where you played in South Africa at what level. You go abroad, there's a period of adjustment. And that takes time, because generally speaking, not only South Africans, non-Europeans coming into the European setup, tactically they're behind. They have a lot to learn tactically. They have a lot to learn in terms of work rate and intensity, because the pace of the games outside of Europe, most leagues are much less of an intensity. In Europe, it's intense. So there's a big period of adaptation. You know, you look at Shlongwane. He went to Minnesota for his first season. He basically had a year of adaptation. This season he's done well, but last year, calendar year 2022, was a big adaptation for him. You know, so
and their league is certainly not as intense as Europe.
As Europe, no, 100%. And so, you know, the older you get, the harder it becomes to make these changes to your game fairly quickly and to learn quickly. So I would say, you know, and also it comes back again. So in Themba Zwane's case, timing would have been everything. He would have had to be good enough at 22, 23 to have had a chance to play in Europe. I don't think he was. I don't think he wasn't regular at Sundowns when he was 22, 23.
That's the problem with our football. Yeah, we're calling people youngsters when they're 23, 24. When they break into the PSL, they should be breaking into PSL. And Sundowns are being pushing players much younger than any other club right now, if my memory serves me correctly. And that's a great thing. But generally speaking, we fantasize when we're calling guys youngsters at 22, 23s. We
No,
deem
100%. And you look at, I was quite interested to see Hugo Broos's criticism of Malula's transfer to MLS.
but I'm meaning the club as opposed to MLS, Rob.
Yes, but we must remember, and this is what was my point of view when you and I debated Young Player of the Year for last season. I didn't classify Cassius Mailula as a young player. He turned 23 in June. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think that he was right. That if he had any ambitions of wanting to try and make it abroad,
Good.
I think he was right to take that transfer.
I agree fully.
And you know what, Peter? At the end of the day, yes, he's sitting on the bench. Yes, there's two players who have been big players in Serie A, Bernardeschi and otherwise I've just forgotten the other one's name. But he's learning from world-class players.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, it hasn't worked. Toronto have had a bad season. The Italians are not happy. They want to go. There's every possibility that from next season, Cassius can force his way into the starting lineup and become a regular player.
As a striker in particular, but as any footballer, if you don't back yourself,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be in the game. So I disagree with Bruce. I think that he had to go overseas. Another year in South Africa would have been definitely a year too long. The fact that he's gone to a club where they're two really good strikers, I think that's even great because A, will learn from them, and B, he'll battle his way to displace them. And if he did, well, then he's in the pound seat and he's up and running. If he can't, it's not the end of the world because he can get another club there or he's learning from them. So I think one of the biggest weaknesses in and it's affecting Bafana greatly, is, and if you look at the lineup, we've got one player playing in the English Premier League. He's not a regular. We need to go back to the old days where you can pick a Bafana 11 and a Bafana squad out of players who are playing in the top leagues, in the top teams. So, and we're far from that. The more we got.
And Peter, what's the worst that's going to happen? After a couple of years of being at Toronto, the worst is that maybe he's not going to be playing as regularly as he wants, and he's going to leave and possibly come back to South Africa, but he'll come back as a better player. Okay, I mean, what's that, Peter?
It's your choice of clubs, so he's a win-win every way.
Exactly. And maybe Toronto isn't the right club for him, but maybe he makes one move to another club in MLS or wherever, and that becomes the right club. That happens in football. Sometimes a move doesn't work out at one club, but it works out. You look a completely reborn player at the next club. So I think it's very premature to have said about Malula that he shouldn't have taken that move. Hats off to him that he had the courage to do it. Good. And because let me tell you, Peter, when I used to look after Tashreeq Matthews, we had the chance to go to Toronto before Malula. It was exactly January 2022. And he could have gone there. The Italians were coming in the June, I think it was. So he would have had 6 months there, and the Italians would have been there. He would have had a great opportunity to improve as a player, to learn at a different level. And for me, unknown reason, Tashreeq Matthews said that he doesn't want to go. And he ends up, going to Sirius in Sweden, where after a slow start, he's done well now. But Peter, how easy is it to get out of Sirius to a reasonable size transfer? It's not easy. Whereas, like, if he had gone to Toronto and done really well, and Matthews was younger at that stage than what Malula was when Malula went over, Matthews could have come back to Europe at a completely different level.
Yeah. Tell me, what do you think of him as a player? What are his strengths and weaknesses? I mean, he's in the Bafana squad.
Matthews or Malula?
Matthews.
Matthews. Unpredictability, his dribbling skills, and he's really quick. The challenges when I was looking after him was that he was quite lightweight. In the shoulder to shoulder, it was difficult because he's quite a light player, but he's feisty. He doesn't shy away from putting a foot in. And he was inconsistent when I looked after him. He would have a run of good games and then disappear for some others. But he had some potential. But I really think that, I don't know, possibly if he looks back on it now, it's maybe a move that he should have made, because I think it would have given him the platform to elevate himself even more, but that is what it is,
Before we go to a big discussion that the readers and viewers want us to discuss, and that's the PSL lack of crowds. They've also asked, a lot of guys have said, listen, you've got Benni McCarthy at Man United, you've worked with Dutch coaches, you're obviously in the UK. Why is Man United in crisis after spending all this money? I'm not a United fan, but I'd love to hear why. Your opinion on this. So why is Man United?
I'm going to give you my opinion as an outsider, not as anybody who's getting inside information from Benny, because generally speaking, I don't get involved in discussing too much with him about what happens behind the scenes at Man United. I mean, he's in a position where it's not like he's a player. He's a coach that's in a responsible, trusted position.
He's hired by Ten Hag, so
Yeah, no, exactly. But I mean, if I look at it from the outside, and from what I know of let's say, Eric and Ten Hag, etc.
Dutch coaches, generally speaking, Rob. So, what are Dutch coaches? All the Dutch coaches I've met are very different breed.
They are an acquired taste, a lot of them. But I like the taste. Let me tell you why. Because they're straight. They tell it to you exactly how it is. They don't come and tell you what you want to hear, but they don't really mean it. They just, some coaches figure out, tell the kid what he wants to hear, even though I don't believe what I'm telling him. But he wants to hear it. That's my way of building up the relationship, blah, blah, blah. I like the Dutch coaches. I like them because they're straight. They say it like it is. Not everybody can handle it.
Obviously, Ronaldo couldn't handle it.
Well, yeah, and coming back to South Africa, I think Ruud Krol had a particular way of doing things. I know when we launched IS Cape Town, we had Leo van Veen, who was the coach. It took us a little bit of time to get used to his directness, but you appreciate that. So Eric is obviously direct, tells it like it is. And I think also, it's not like managing Ajax Amsterdam. It's managing Ajax Amsterdam. It's a big club, good club, but mainly made up of young players with high potential. And therefore, younger players have still a fear factor in them in terms of relationships. They know there's very few of them that'll step too far out of line in the way they address a coach or the coaching staff. England is a different animal. The Premier League is a different animal. Everyone in that squad, the top 20 players in that squad are all earning north of 50, 60,000 pounds a week. Some of them earning up to 300-400 a week in the case of like Man United. And you know what it's like with young players. And not only players, but everybody in life. When you got money in your pocket, you think that equates to brains. But that's not necessarily the fact. You've got money in your pocket because you've got a certain skill set that's very good within that skill set. But that doesn't equate to knowing everything about everything. So you have very opinionated players in England and players who are not scared to say, well, stuff you. I'm walking off the training field. And I think it's a big adjustment for Eric,
So what you're really saying is that he has not adjusted because all the clubs, the players that you're speaking about, that applies to all the clubs. They're all at the big clubs. They're all like that. So surely, and the other managers are not having the same kind of problem that he's having. So is it him not managing or understanding how to manage that group versus Dutch players? But then on the other hand, if you look at last season, he had a very good season and ended extremely strongly. So what was he doing right? Or was Ronaldo running the show to a certain extent? And because if you look at it, he got nearly 20 goals each season, or more than 20 goals each season. So was he maybe too hasty in getting Ronaldo?
Peter, I would say this, or there's another very big factor.
Mm.
The guys that he's having challenges with, he inherited them. He never went out and signed those guys. So the guys that he's signed, you got to say, how many of those has he had problems with in dealing one-to-one and in relationship building? I don't think he's had, yeah.
If you look at who he's picking, those guys aren't in the team. He's picking this team, and a big percentage of that team that he's picking are players he's signed, or he's certainly given them his players now. I mean, not every coach comes in and has a completely new side. So this is his side. Sancho's not in the team. Ronaldo's gone. I don't think they're in that side that aren't his players. Yet they're incredibly inconsistent. They're not the team they were last season. You're quite surprised when they win a game now.
No. That is all. That's all true. But at the end of the day, let's see how they finish the race. Because I remember the whole world was caving in Ten Hag's first 5-6 games. It was who Man United got. This guy doesn't have a clue. Blah blah blah. And as you say, he ended up having a pretty decent season last year. The disappointment is that they haven't kicked on.
Yeah.
The summer, personally, I think some of the signings they made, I mean, personally, I don't think they needed Mason Mount. I think that money could have been spent on other positions. Yeah. Who else? Hoyland looks interesting. He could be an interesting signing.
He's a poor man's Holland, but anyway.
But he's young as well. I think he'll be worth his money. Amrabat, obviously it's someone that Ten Hag's worked with. So, and that's one thing he's shown as well. He's shown a propensity for going back to signing people or players that either he's worked with or he knows very well. Okay, and that's not abnormal, but it's I mean, he's also had to contend with a lot of injuries. I'm Peter. Let's see how the next 3 months. Let's have this discussion. February, March. Let's see where we are then.
I'll give you my opinion on his situation is twofold. One, everybody wanted Arteta out, and Arteta got a bit of time, and look where Arsenal are right now. So that's the one side.
Exactly.
Give him a bit of time, and if you can do an Arteta, fantastic. If he looks like he can't do an Arteta, then get rid of him. That's the first point. The second point is that I think that the English Premier League has the coaching of some of the teams have improved dramatically over the last couple of seasons. You look at Brighton, you look at Aston Villa, you look at Spurs right now, and they have all gone leaps and bounds ahead in terms of the kind of football they're playing, the different tactics they bring into the game. And you're scared to play Brighton right now. They've gone on another level even since Potter left. You're scared to play Aston Villa right now, whereas when Gerrard was there, you could play them and beat them. Spurs were boring, and you always felt you could get a point against them or even beat them. Now you're scared to play Spurs. Arsenal always were a bit of a soft touch. Now you're scared to play Arsenal. Obviously, Man City, you're scared to play. Chelsea, you were scared to play, they're nowhere. So what I think is a lot of those clubs that I mentioned, I may have left out one or two that I can't think of right now. But these guys have got outstanding coaches who are also new to the English Premier League. Although the Spanish coach at Villa, what's his name? I just forget his name for a second.
Emery. Emery had a spell at Arsenal. So
I heard of him too quickly, but I mean, he's a proper winner. How they beat Brighton as well was a phenomenal performance.
yeah,
So
and Brighton's coach is fantastic. De Zerbi, he hit the ground running. He's been very good.
So I think that you've got to be playing. You've got to be really doing your homework as a coach these days, and you've got to be brave. And I don't think he is as brave as the coach I've just mentioned, or a Klopp, or a Pep Guardiola, obviously. And I think fortune favors the brave, and these guys will go out on the front foot. They play attractive, quick football. And if you look at Man United, it's laboured. And I think that's the big difference. He's got to get rid of this laboured kind of football. It's almost like watching international football. It's much more laboured than club football. But anyway.
But Peter, also you got to understand, it's not easy managing a club that's up for sale but is not up for sale. And then you got people traipsing in and out of the training ground, doing their due diligence. Is this, looking at the club? Is it worth this kind of money? Blah blah blah. And it's not an easy environment in which to feel that there's some sort of stability. You know what I mean? But okay, in football, there's never stability. Every coach can get fired tomorrow. But at least if there can be a period where at least you feel some stability, I think. And I don't think Ten Hag's ever had that. I mean, virtually from day one when he started at United, he had all the stuff to sort out from the Solskjaer era and the Radnič era, which was a lot of work to sort out, but also against the backdrop of a very militant fan base who was saying every home game you go to, you're not feeling at home because you've got this undercurrent of people wanting the owners out, and it's a difficult situation. But I say just be a little bit patient. I'm with you. I think he will get it right, but he'll need to get a few more players out before he can get it right.
My message to the Man United fans, if I was a Man United fan and if I was a Kaizer Chiefs fan, I would say the same thing to my club. If I was a Chiefs fan, I would say the same thing as I would say if I was a Man United fan. And I would tell my club, get your act together. Because the club has got to get their act together. The one thing that remains is the club. The coach can go. The last X amount of coaches at Man United have been unsuccessful. You could call Mourinho successful from a trophy point of view, but it wasn't a happy-looking club, and it never looked like that he was going to be there for X amount of years, and they played poor football. So that club needs to get its act together. If the club gets its act together, which is going on your point, it trickles down, and the manager and so on and so forth. Man City got their act together, and they got Pep. He would never have gone there unless their act was together. Liverpool did that. Spurs have finally done it with this guy. Villa have done it with their guy. So I'm not saying Man United got to change the coach. The Man United club has got to get their act together, and it'll filter down. Kaizer Chiefs is like Man United, massive club in South African terms. They've got to get their act together. Every season, a new couple of coaches, same kind of result.
Yeah.
So I was a Chiefs fan, and fans of Chiefs and fans of United, Man United, don't read this incorrectly. I'm not having a go at your club. I'm saying if I was a fanatic of any of those two teams, and I support Arsenal, by the way, in the UK. I don't support any one particular team in South Africa. I supported Atlantic when I was a kid, and I don't believe you ever change who you support. I support whichever our teams are playing in Africa, obviously, but that's a separate issue. So fans of United and fans of Chiefs, you've got the same problem. Your clubs have got to get their act together. United have got to be competing against the Man Cities and the Arsenals, and Chiefs have got to be winning trophies over and above what Sundowns are doing. It's really as simple as that. Get your act together. Anyway, Rob, and I'm sure I'm going to get a lot of comments from our viewers on that, but I love it. We love the debate. We're talking about, and let's end on this one. And guys, please, again, don't forget to like and subscribe and comment. And definitely, I know you're going to comment on my views on what my message to Chiefs and Man United. But it's a compliment to tell these big clubs, get your act together. You wouldn't be telling the small club, get your act together, because potentially they should be winning things in their respective leagues. Let's go to the PSL. I'm obviously an ex-player. I'm an ex. I've been in the media game for a long time. Even owned the club. You're an ex-owner. You're an agent. You're South African like I am. We love our football. We switch on the television, and besides when Chiefs are playing Pirates or Chiefs are playing Sundowns or Pirates are playing Sundowns, the stadiums are empty. I went on my Twitter account and we discussed it. We got a phenomenal response, and it proved once again how intelligent South African soccer fans are, how passionate they are, and how understanding they are of the problems. And I spoke to you about it, off air, so to speak, about what the guy said. And generally speaking, the comments were superb. And I hope the PSL and the big teams and SAFA read those Twitter tweets that came in, because they were top class. And the obvious ones: cost of going to football overall, not just ticket prices, the poor standard, the security risk of at the stadium, getting to the stadium, the lack of transport, and even if there is transport, the cost of it, and the lack of security. Basically, that the club's not interested in you. Once you're outside the stadium, you could get mugged, you could get robbed. What it cost you for the parking. Some of the parking, never mind getting there with petrol, is 50 Rand just to park your car outside Orlando, I'm told. Clubs not being community driven at all. The fact that you can stay at home or go to a pub or a tavern and watch any game from Serie A to La Liga to English Premier League to PSL or any internet Champions League games during the week. Excuse me. Other things, hooliganism at the stadium, and then a very good point that so many people made, and you mentioned it as well, that you could be living in Tembisa and your father would have supported Tembisa Classic, and then Highlands Park came, then you supported Highlands Park, but suddenly they just sold the teams from under your feet. And why would you support a team that could disappear after 2 years? You may as well just support the big teams, and you lose your faith in the football. That would never happen overseas, that a club, Bloemfontein Celtic, can disappear and go play in Durban under a new name. It wouldn't be allowed. The league wouldn't allow it. Yet it's allowed here. So that takes away a lot of fandom, and it also takes away the seriousness of how we see our football. Bafana being very poor. Obviously, the better your national team is, it filters down to the league. And then lastly, the guys even joke about it, that a club owner out of the blue will buy a team so that it can put his name in it. Now, I know obviously Kaizer started this trend, but I think that was a one-off, because it started off as and I don't want to compare it to what's currently, because it started off as a traveling team. It was Kaizer and his friends, so to speak, playing all over the country. And then obviously the Chiefs thing came in after. So that's an exception. But having teams, named after owners is not something that's done anywhere in the world as far as I'm concerned. And that does take away kind of the football feel. But those are the things that the fans have said us. Your comments on what they've said, and in particular, Rob, you've been a club owner and you've been on that board of governors. And you're also a lover of our game. If it continues like this, and we're losing sponsorship, it continues like this, we'll be playing to empty stadiums even when the big teams play. And we're now going to be competing with the African Football League, which is starting this weekend, and is going to grow whether people like it or not. Rob.
Peter, it's interesting. I don't think there's a quick fix solution, because, as you pointed out, I mean, if I want to go watch, I'm living in London and I want to go watch Arsenal, I get on the underground train and I go up to Emirates, and then I come home again. During that trip, maybe it's cost me £10 to go on the train up and down to the game. Okay, my entry ticket is at least £70.
Is it easy to catch? Is it easy to get to that underground from where you stay? And is it directly to the stadium?
A few blocks walk to my local station, and the train comes out within a block or two of the stadium.
So we don't have a sophisticated, I don't want to call it unsophisticated.
Transport system.
Someone would have to get on a taxi to take another taxi to take another taxi to probably another taxi.
Yeah, and if you go in your own car and you're paying 50 rand, then that's high. To park, it's high. Because, Peter, it's always a percentage of how much does it cost you to watch the game. So it costs, if I can buy a ticket for Arsenal, a cheap ticket, would probably be around 50, 60 pounds. Okay? I don't even, well, maybe 60 pounds. At the end of the day, I'm paying 8 or 10. I'm paying 15% of the ticket price I'm spending on transport. In South Africa, it's completely the opposite way around. You're paying how much to get into a PSL game nowadays?
It can vary, but let's just say a normal game, 40 rand, you can pay up to 100 rand, you can pay 150 rand.
So cheap seats, you can get a cheap seat for 40 rand.
Yeah.
But to park your car might cost you 50.
Yeah.
Or to take taxis to get to the game might cost you 150. The economics are out of sync, you know. But that's, you know, is that because the tickets are too cheap, or is it because the transport's too expensive, or is it because the transport system should be more developed than what it is? It's difficult. They're difficult questions. Okay. But Peter, and a lot of,
I just want to hold it there. I think as a club owners, and I don't know if they're doing this, club owners should be saying, right, we're going to take responsibility. I'm not talking about financial responsibility. We're going to take responsibility of finding out the journey of our fans to get to games and do research to work out where those fans are coming from. And some of the clubs will be very easy. It's a couple of hundred people. Working out what it costs and what are the obstacles these fans are having to get from point A to the stadium. And then getting a proper research company saying, how do we make it, and a logistics company, how do we make it easier for these people and more efficient to come to games? And it'll improve our transport system in general. I'm sure they could work in conjunction with the taxi guys and the bus guys and so on and so forth. These things work, Rob, when there's a will, there's a way. And we need to become...
I agree with you. I agree with you. And when we had 7 stars, we had a deal with the bus company, with Golden Arrow buses or whatever I think the company was called. And we recognized this, and we had a deal whereby they were one of our sponsors, and they would lay on buses to transport people from various townships to come and watch our games. And you know, I think that's an area that's been maybe totally overlooked. Maybe the PSL has to do a major deal countrywide with a bus company that is committed to putting on 15 buses per game for the home side.
Or Rob, you can have football taxis. We've got an incredible amount of taxis that are not operating 24/7. People are generally at home when soccer games are taking place. I'm sure there's a potential to do safe, direct football taxis to games. That's just one example. Again, where there's a will, there's a way. And I think soccer in South Africa has got to become fan first. Their thinking has got to be fan first. Put fan first. If you think that way all the time, everything will sort itself out, and including how they deal with the media. If they put fan first, they would deal with the media way more than they currently deal with the media. Fan first, transport would be the first criteria, because make it easy for the guys to get to your shop. Soccer
exactly. 100%. But then I think, Peter, the other thing, and people call me a hypocrite because I bought a team, UPE Spurs, and I relocated it to Nyanga in Cape Town, and renamed it 7 Stars after the 7 major townships areas of Cape Town. So people will say, yeah, you did that, you're a hypocrite. But if I had to have a blank canvas to start South African football off from day zero again, I would make it cast in stone. your name of your club must reflect your community or your city.
100%.
Number two, you cannot move the franchise. You play, that is where your club is. That is where you build your heritage. That's where you build your legacy. That's where your children's children will talk about the stories of what happened to our club in the years gone by. You build history.
I love the club has to become a soulmate and vice versa of the community.
Exactly.
Should be soulmates. And in South Africa, there are obviously that with the big clubs, the big three in particular, but that's not the league. The league needs to be, you need, the entire community has got to feel as they're a soulmate to that club. There's, well, I think France in France that has more people coming to, I speak under correction in the name of the team, but more people come to the stadium than actually live in the city.
That yes, Auxerre's another one. It sounds like I don't know, 10,000 people, but like 20,000 come to the games. But no, you're exactly right. So that is, Peter, it's you know, I always used to, when I was growing up, proud myself as being more of a modern thinker and blah, blah. But as I've got older, the more I've realized the importance of heritage and history, because that's what creates your stories about your local club. You know, that you hand down the ages. And you have your grandchild sitting on your knee and you say, when I went to go watch Orlando Pirates, this, and this was the great player, and this was my experience, and blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? So there's very few clubs that actually can tick off all the boxes. Name of community, stadium in the heart of the community, that the club name is synonymous with history and tradition, like Amazulu is, you know, or fan symbolism, like the Buccaneers have got the crossbones, and you know you need all that, and you know, it's football's gone in search of what they think is an easy buck to move a big game to another city for the sake of a big gate, but how do you then develop loyalty?
They're going for short-term gain. They need to go for short-term gain for long-term gain.
Exactly. And so that's, and then the other thing that I think South African soccer badly needs is, if I was the league, and this is a radical statement I'm going to make, but it's worked pretty well in America, I would buy back all the teams, all the franchises, and I would then start the league by selling the league, each franchise off to people who can afford to be in the game. They've got a plan on the stadium. They've got a plan on the training facilities. They have a history of being able to pay on time and meet their commitments. And they're people who want to be in this game and can afford to be in this game. That's critical, Peter. If you don't have that,
I don't know how you're going to buy back Chiefs, Pirates, or Sundowns. Patrice is certainly not going to sell it. But I understand, you know, the franchise agreement that they've got in the league should be actually encompassing this thing anyway, because what they're not enforcing is your, I can't think of the right term.
Fit and proper owner's test.
And there should be a financial test to that you have X amount of assets to be able to fund the growth of the league. And that's the big change. You know, there's enough people in South Africa, Rob. We don't have to go through all of these things right now. There's enough people with great experience, and I'll tell you something, I would join a committee or be part of a team that looks at how we can bring cows back into football and change things. But it's got to be, we have a problem, and if we don't say we have a problem, then we can't solve it. We have to accept that problem, and that's a good thing, because then we give ourselves the capability to solve it. But Rob, that was great. Enjoyed every minute. We haven't got on to what I'd like to get on to next time, is the African Football League, because we had a great chat about that last time, and now it's actually happening. And obviously Sundowns weren't going to be allowed to play by the PSL, and now they are. But we'll leave that for next time. Thanks a million, guys, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. Rob and I, we live off your comments, and our ego is good for your likes and subscribe. So thanks a lot, guys. See you again. Rob, chat soon.
Cheers, Peter. Ciao.
Bye.